joining us.
Hey, great to be here. You're right.
Now, ISH can be a bit of a head-scratcher.
It can be, especially, when you think you've got a handle on blood pressure in general.
Exactly. So let's start with the basics for our listener.
Hmm.
What exactly ISH, and how is it different from regular high blood pressure?
Well, think of your blood pressure reading like a fraction.
Okay.
You got that top number, the systolic pressure, which measures the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats.
Okay.
Then there's the bottom number, the diastolic pressure,
Right.
which is the pressure when your heart rests between beats.
Yeah.
With ISH, it's that top number, the systolic, that's high, while the diastolic stays normal.
Okay. So it's not just about the overall pressure being high.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But before we go any further,
Sure.
Can you quickly remind us what the different blood pressure categories are?
Absolutely. A normal reading is 120 80 millimeters of mercury, or mmHg.
Okay.
If that top number is between a 120 and 129, while the bottom stays at 80, that's considered elevated blood pressure. Then we move into hypertension territory.
Yeah.
Stage 1 is 130 to 139 over 80 to 89.
Right.
And stage 2 is 420, 90 or higher.
Got it.
So with ISH, you'd see that top number falling into one of those hypertension stages, even if that bottom number looks perfectly fine.
So even if someone sees that bottom number and thinks, hey, I'm good,
Right.
that top number could be telling a different story.
Totally. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned ISH is more common as we age,
Huh?
but what about the differences between men and women?
Yeah.
Does it affect one group more than the other?
While high blood pressure in general affects both men and women, ISH is actually more prevalent in men, which is a bit surprising.
That is surprising.
Yeah.
So for our listener who might be thinking, well, maybe it's not a big deal if only one number is high.
Right.
Should they be concerned if they have ISH?
That's the thing about ISH. It can be sneaky.
Okay.
Even though only one number's elevated, untreated ISH can lead to some serious health complications.
Oh, wow.
Like heart disease,
Okay.
stroke, and even kidney failure.
Wow.
So ignoring it's definitely not a good idea.
Okay, that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah.
So besides taking a blood pressure reading, are there any signs that someone might have ISH? Anything they could notice in their day-to-day life?
It can be tricky.
Okay.
Because many potential symptoms are things we often associate with getting older.
Right.
But some things to keep an eye out for include excessive sweating,
Okay.
unusually loud snoring, muscle weakness, or tremors, and even thinning skin.
Wow.
Now, these aren't exclusive to ISH,
Right.
but they could be a sign that something's up with your blood pressure.
So if you're experiencing any of those things, definitely a good idea to get your blood pressure checked.
Absolutely.
But what exactly causes ISH in the first place? Is it just an inevitable part of getting older?
Well, aging definitely plays a major role.
Okay.
As we get older, our blood vessels naturally lose some of their flexibility and becomes stiffer.
Yeah.
Imagine a garden hose that's been left out in the sun too long.
Right.
It gets hard and inflexible.
Okay.
The same thing happens to our arteries. And this process called arteriosclerosis means less blood can flow easily.
Right.
Leading to an increase in pressure, particularly that systolic pressure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like wear and tear on our internal plumbing.
Yeah.
But you mentioned there are other causes too, right?
Yeah.
Not just aging.
You're right. There's more to the story. Some surprising culprits can contribute to ISH. For instance, anemia, where you have a low red blood cell count, can lead to ISH because your body struggles to deliver enough oxygen.
Okay, so your body is working overtime to compensate for that lack of oxygen.
Exactly.
And that puts stress on the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then there's hyperthyroidism.
Right.
An overactive thyroid, which can also be a factor.
Okay.
It throws off your hormone balance.
Right.
Affects your heart and circulation. And of course, we can't forget about diabetes, both type 1 and type 2.
Right.
Diabetes can lead to imbalanced glucose levels and an increased risk of various heart problems,
Right.
including ISH.
Wow, so many different factors can contribute to ISH. It really highlights how interconnected our bodies are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's another one that might surprise you, obstructive sleep apnea.
Okay.
You know when you stop breathing for short periods during sleep? Turns out that puts a lot of stress on your cardiovascular system and can contribute to higher blood pressure, including ISH.
So it's not just about age. There's a whole web of underlying conditions that can play a role.
Precisely. And beyond those specific conditions, there are the usual suspects that can increase your risk for just about any health issue.
Right.
Smoking, lack of exercise,
Is.
obesity,
Yep.
excessive alcohol consumption,
Yep.
kidney disease, even certain medications like cold remedies, decongestants, or birth control pills can sometimes be a factor.
So many things to consider.
I know, right?
Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the potential consequences of ISH. You've mentioned some serious problems.
Yeah.
But how exactly does ISH damage the body? What's happening at a cellular level?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
High blood pressure, regardless of the cause, puts a lot of strain on your arteries. It's like constantly pushing water through a hose with too much force. Over time, this pressure can damage the inner lining of your arteries,
Right.
leading to tiny tears and making them more prone to cholesterol buildup.
And that buildup is bad.
That buildup acts like a clog in the pipes, restricting blood flow and making it harder for oxygen to reach your heart and other vital organs.
Okay.
If that blockage becomes severe enough, it can lead to a heart attack.
Right.
And the same process can happen in the blood vessels of other organs like your kidneys, leading to potential organ damage or even failure.
Okay, now I'm really starting to understand why we can't just brush ISH aside. So let's say someone suspects they might have ISH.
Okay.
How is it officially diagnosed? Is it a complicated process?
Actually, diagnosing ISH is pretty straightforward. It all starts with a simple blood pressure reading, which your doctor can do either manually, using a stethoscope and blood pressure cuff, or with an automatic machine.
And if that reading shows ISH, what happens next?
Your doctor might recommend some additional tests, like an electrocardiogram or ECG, to check your heart's electrical activity, or an echocardiogram, which uses sound waves to create a picture of your heart's structure and function.
Okay.
These tests help rule out any other potential causes for your high blood pressure and give your doctor a clearer picture of your overall cardiovascular health.
So diagnosis is relatively simple. But what about preventing ISH in the first place? What can people do to lower their risk?
You know the drill.
Okay.
It all comes back to living a healthy lifestyle.
Go on.
Eating a balanced diet that's low in sodium and saturated fats, getting regular exercise, and not smoking are all key.
Those are good for just about everything, right?
Exactly. And if you have any pre-existing conditions like diabetes or kidney disease, managing them effectively with medication and lifestyle modifications is crucial.
What about natural supplements? Do those play a role in prevention?
Some natural supplements might help lower blood pressure, but it's super important to talk to your doctor before starting any new supplements, especially if you're already on medication.
Okay.
They can help you figure out what's safe and effective for you.
Great advice. So we've covered prevention, but what if someone already has ISH? What are the treatment options? Are there natural ways to address it?
Absolutely. Lifestyle changes are often the first line of defense.
Okay.
Losing even a small amount of weight can make a big difference in your blood pressure.
Right.
Incorporating more physical activity into your routine, even just walking more each day, can help too.
Okay.
And of course, cutting back on alcohol is always a good idea.
Those all sound manageable. But what about more serious cases? What happens when lifestyle changes aren't enough?
In more severe cases, medication might be necessary to get your blood pressure under control.
Okay.
There are several different types of medications that can be used to treat ISH, each with its own way of working.
Could you give us a quick overview of those different types of medications?
Sure. One common type is diuretics, also known as water pills.
Okay.
They work by helping your body get rid of excess sodium in water, which reduces blood volume and lowers pressure.
Okay.
Another option is beta blockers, which slow down your heart rate and reduce the force of your heart's contractions.
Okay. Those sound familiar. What else is out there?
We also have angiotensin-converting enzyme, ACE inhibitors, which block the production of a hormone that causes blood vessels to constrict. And similar to those are angiotensin II receptor blockers, ARBs, which block the action of that same hormone.
Okay.
Finally, there are renin inhibitors, which target a different part of the hormonal pathway that regulates blood pressure.
Wow, it seems like there are a lot of different approaches to managing ISH.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works best for you in consultation with your doctor, considering your specific situation and needs.
This has been incredibly eye-opening, Olivia.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much for taking the time to break down ISH for us.
You're welcome.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface, though. There's so much more to explore.
Yeah. Definitely. And there's a lot of exciting research happening in this area.
Well, for our listener, hang tight because we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Olivia and I will delve even deeper into the world of ISH, exploring emerging trends and cutting-edge research in its management. Stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. As we were talking about those different medications, it reminded me that medication isn't always the automatic answer for ISH.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people assume that anytime you're talking about high blood pressure, medication is inevitable.
It's understandable, but it's not always the case, especially with ISH.
Okay.
If someone has mild ISH and is otherwise healthy, lifestyle modifications might be all they need to manage their blood pressure effectively.
So you're saying it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground on the causes and consequences of ISH.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the actual process of ISH developing.
Okay.
Is it something that happens gradually over time, or can it appear suddenly?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that researchers are still trying to fully understand.
Okay.
What we do know is that ISH tends to be more common as we age.
Right.
Which suggests that it's at least partly a gradual process related to those age-related changes in our blood vessels that we talked about earlier.
So it's like those blood vessels are slowly losing their elasticity over time.
Yeah.
Eventually leading to that increased systolic pressure.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's why prevention is so important.
Right.
By adopting a healthy lifestyle early on, we can slow down that process and potentially delay or even prevent the onset of ISH.
Okay, so it's not like we're all just sitting here waiting for ISH to inevitably happen one day.
Right.
There are things we can do to influence our risk.
Exactly.
But is there a specific age when people should start paying closer attention to their systolic blood pressure?
There's no magic number.
Okay.
But generally speaking, once you hit your 40s and 50s, it's a good idea to start being more aware of your blood pressure numbers.
Okay.
And of course, if you have any risk factors for ISH, like a family history of high blood pressure or any of those underlying conditions we discussed earlier, being vigilant is even more important.
So those regular checkups become even more crucial as we age.
Absolutely.
Got it.
And it's important to remember that blood pressure can fluctuate throughout the day.
Okay.
So one slightly elevated reading doesn't necessarily mean you have ISH.
Okay, that's reassuring to know.
Right.
Yeah, no need to panic over one high reading.
Exactly. What matters is the overall pattern over time. That's why those regular checkups are so important.
Okay.
They give your doctor a more complete picture of your blood pressure trends.
Speaking of trends, let's say someone has been diagnosed with ISH.
Okay.
And is working with their doctor to manage it.
Are
there any specific things they should be monitoring at home besides just their blood pressure readings?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of being in tune with your body while checking your blood pressure regularly is crucial.
Right.
Paying attention to any unusual symptoms is also key.
So those symptoms we talked about earlier, like the sweating, tremors, muscle weakness, and thinning skin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you notice any of those symptoms or any other changes that seem out of the ordinary, it's a good idea to check in with your doctor, even if your recent blood pressure readings have been normal.
Because those symptoms could be a sign that something's changing.
Yeah.
Even if the blood pressure hasn't quite caught up yet.
Precisely. It's about being proactive and addressing potential issues early on.
Right.
And speaking of being proactive, another important thing to monitor is your stress levels.
Stress and blood pressure.
Right.
A classic duo.
We all know that stress can cause our blood pressure to spike in the moment.
Right.
But chronic stress can actually contribute to long-term increases in blood pressure.
Okay.
Including ISH.
Right.
Finding healthy ways to manage stress, like exercise, meditation, or spending time in nature, can be incredibly beneficial.
So it's not just about our physical health, but our mental and emotional well-being too.
Absolutely.
Right?
All connected.
This has been such a great conversation.
Oh, good.
I feel like we've really dug into the nuances of ISH.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more to explore, right?
I completely agree.
Yeah.
There are some amazing advancements happening in this field.
Right.
And we're going to talk about some of those after a quick break.
Okay. Sounds good.
Stay with us.
And we're back with the TheEMTSpot's Blood Pressure Podcast. This is Samuel Harrison, and we're wrapping up our deep dive into isolated systolic hypertension with the brilliant Olivia Harper.
It's great to be back. And, as we talk about these potential advancements in managing ISH, it really highlights the importance of staying informed and advocating for your own health.
I completely agree. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something as complex as ISH. But before we wrap up completely, are there any final thoughts or takeaways you'd like to leave our listener with?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing to remember is that ISH is manageable. While it can have serious consequences if left untreated, there are many things you can do to take control of your health.
You've given us so much to think about today, from understanding the causes and consequences of ISH to exploring the latest research and treatment options. It feels like we've been on a real journey of discovery.
I've enjoyed the journey too. And remember, if you're concerned about ISH or any aspect of your blood pressure, the best thing you can do is talk to your doctor. They can help you assess your risk, create a personalized management plan, and answer any questions you might have.
That's great advice, Olivia. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on the TheEMTSpot's Blood Pressure Podcast. We hope this deep dive into isolated systolic hypertension has been informative and empowering. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more episodes on all things blood pressure. And remember, knowledge is power when it comes to your health. Until next time, stay well.
Stay well, everyone.